What's happening, guys? Welcome back to the channel. So I want to talk about what just happened, right? Where are we and what may or may not be coming next. So today while I'm making this, yesterday was one of the worst days in crypto in some time, right? For people if they were holding, many things dropped, between 50 and 60%. Some things even worse on the way down. From sort of the peak top just a bit ago to where they dropped to, and so everybody freaked out, right? And I think it's important to understand why and what's happening, right? I think that one thing that many people understand, hopefully, who've been in the space for some time, right, is that anytime we're in sort of a bull point within the cycle, right, or in a bull market within the different cycles that go on, there are, right, these 30 to 40 something percent corrections that happen, right? So this is normal to some extent, right? But it is just hard whenever there's just sign after sign after sign of so many things happening, right? With big businesses coming into the space, adding Bitcoin to their balance sheet, the discussions of, of governments adding it even to their balance sheet, and just every single thing happening, right? Mainstream, Tom Brady laser eyes, everything happening. And then all of a sudden there's just this big, just this big exhale, right? Where everyone's forced to be like, oh, okay, hold on. How crazy was I getting? And in hindsight, in many ways, right, it almost seems obvious, right, that was going to happen because, right, I mean, you look at where we're at, right? You have, things like Doge, which are obviously taking off, going crazy, but then you have, 27 different dog coins launching, some of which are getting, 9-figure and beyond market caps very quickly, and you're like, okay, we're peak crazy, and everyone needs to get humbled a little bit, right? But I think one of the biggest things to understand is that I'm noticing, looking back a little bit at history here on the charts and just seeing what's going on, is a lot of these moves that you'll see in I don't want to just scream manipulation, but clearly, right, as things have a growing market cap as they're growing, right? I mean, even the biggest markets in the world are manipulated, right? Forex has manipulation that goes on. The US stock market has manipulation that goes on. Absolutely. And of course, we're in this world now where money's free, essentially, and governments are printing it like crazy. And you have just these giant firms that are running, right, algorithmic plans to try to suck people in and make them think one thing's going one way or the other. There's a lot of incentive to really move and push markets to be able to clear people out, right? And then you factor that in with crypto, where some people can take up to 100x leverage, right, depending on the exchange. And so what people will do is they'll look at these order books and go, gosh, price is here, right? Let's say, for example, I don't know, price is here, and people go, oh man, like, look at there is, if we can just push price down to here, right, we could liquidate, let's just say $100 million of orders going long, right? So people literally, I mean, this is literally the key part of a lot of big group strategies, is to go, okay, so can we, in a coordinated effort, push the price past that? Because we would liquidate everybody, and if we're shorting on the way down, that whole wall sort of orders that's sitting there leveraged ready to go long, we eat through all of that, and then the floor goes even further, right, till we find support, and then they buy in again. And you're seeing that over and over. This is just, obviously, it's the case of markets, right? Things go up and down. People who are smart money typically buy first or early. They're driving price up. They're pulling profit. They get everybody on red alert, right? They need this crazy demand of people coming into markets to be able to sell into, so they can realize, right, the profits on these big orders. And then once they've burned through that buying demand, all those people who just bought go, where's the other buyers? And then you see just fall down, right? As in response to that. One of the things that was real interesting here, right? So you have certain levels, right? Like here, right, where there was clear support, right? At like the $41,000 mark, right? So roughly $41,000, right? And so many people are seeing that, right? And people looking at charts, and I think the people obviously pushing markets in either direction understand, right, that people are looking at the charts as well, right? I mean, that's why trading is sort of like poker, where it's, even in the most perfect setup, it doesn't mean that things are going to go the way that you want. It's just a way for you to apply, an EV sort of percentage to say, what is the likeliness percentage-wise of things going up from here or down from here? Even you could have every single indicator, everything you want pointing market's going to go up, and things can go the other way, right? But you got to think on the other side, people who are playing that go, if we can make the charts look a particular way so that everyone who looks at technical analysis and certain signs is just screaming, hey man, markets are about to go up, right? You're going to have people watching these people who are analyzing the data and saying, well, this means it's time to buy. Things are going up. They're placing their big orders in. These people can just, pull out the floor on everybody. And it's not to say that like any one group or one person, right, it can play God within the market and absolutely control things, right? But when you're talking about, some of the biggest money in this space, and arguably, right, I mean, it's no secret, you have banks and you have other just gigantic groups, right, who are moving around billions of dollars. They're able to play on that, right? And especially if they're coordinating, with one or several other groups, right? And people are, essentially working to make similar moves with a certain plan in place. You could really sway markets, right, and freak people out. And so one of the things over and over that we've seen, I think, play out on these charts is, right, it's like we're getting to, an all-time high and different things. And again, it'll look like everyone's like, oh my God, right, we've passed every indicator that we need to get over this hump. Here we go, right? And then right when everyone thinks that, you see the opposite happen to that. Or, dude, we just broke through support, we're going down further, whoop, rocket back up. And so that's what I'm seeing more and more of, is a lot of these moves that are very drastic and extreme are essentially directly opposite to what logic, chart data and different things would tell people about what's going to happen in the short term. That's why I don't really trade. I mean, I know there's a lot of YouTubers who trade and give people advice, and frankly, most people who are going through, showing about trading and how it goes, a lot of them aren't profitable, or they don't even trade, right? They're just making that content because they know people want it and people will take trades. Trading is extremely difficult. Investing in quality projects and holding quality assets that, have fundamentals, it gives you a little bit more peace of mind knowing at night, hey, like, I'm okay holding this if shit hits the fan, because my exit strategy is not, 3 hours from now. It's 3 to 5 to 10 years from now, if ever, right? And there's certain assets in crypto, Bitcoin being one of them, and a few others that you may have no exit plan. The plan is only to acquire more. And so trading is obviously playing with fire in that in some regard, right? But the question is now, let's start the video with, is what's happening next, right? What's going to happen next? So I think that, you've got, the Michael Saylors of the world. This guy owns over 111,000 Bitcoin. You've got people like Kathy Wood, extremely smart, extremely connected, right? People like her are still viewing Bitcoin, within this cycle, probably going to $200,000 to $500,000. And I mean, just so many other indicators of what's going on, right? Is the institutional money stopping? Are groups like NYDIG, who are handling these order flows for people coming into the space, are they just drying up, and are people no longer wanting to buy Bitcoin? I don't think that that's the case, right? And then you guys saw obviously that news that came out, right? Literally yesterday, when we're just at peak freakout of Wells Fargo says, hey, we're going to offer crypto to our clients, right? Right on the day when shit is absolutely freaking out. And so clearly, PayPal, the largest banks, and even China to an extent, right? The CCP, right? These are all groups that not only want to acquire a ton of Bitcoin, but they've already got quite a bit of Bitcoin, right? If PayPal's selling you Bitcoin, they already have it, right? China, it's no secret, they've been acquiring Bitcoin. And that's what makes, even moves like what happened with Elon so interesting, right? You look at what happened there with Elon, and you're like, okay, if I, in my life, understand that what he's saying about Bitcoin's energy use is not correct, this is somebody who's got essentially infinity money, right? He's one of the richest people in the world, and he's uber smart, right? He has changed industry and some of the most important industries in the world. So he's clearly, it's like if I can understand that what he's saying about energy is not correct, clearly he knows that, right? I don't think he's the type of guy that's going to, get bad data, follow on that, and then just tweet something on a whim, especially something about Bitcoin when his company has it on his balance sheet, right? That would be legally problematic if you're going to go ahead and tweet something like that, right? Negative about something on your company's balance sheet, and it's not even actually factually correct, right? There are some legal implications of doing some of that, and so people have to be really careful about what they tweet publicly. So it would make one think, God, if what Elon said is not true, why would he say that, right? There's a lot of speculation that can go on, right? There are thoughts of, things of him wanting to do business and break in China, and, or even some of the EV credits that go on in the US, right? And that makes up, at least for the last couple of years to my understanding, those EV credits that he's just gotten from the government have been infinitely more revenue than what the companies earn from actually selling cars, right? So in many ways, Tesla has been able to stay afloat and keep growing because of government handouts. And so, we understand, right, who is in the positions of power right now in the U.S. Some of the things that they view as a priority, right, have to do with the climate and energy, right? And so he has to play into that, right? And if he has a stance, and gets pressured from either them and or countries like China who's working with, and he gets pressured so that, hey man, you're not going to you're going to have a harder time getting those EV credits unless you have this position on this thing. It makes you wonder if that's the motivation for doing it. And again, there's a huge opportunity for somebody who knows maybe he's going to tweet something like that to take a big position on the downside. Either way, there's a crazy bullish case still for what's happening. Obviously, looking at these charts, it is a scary thing when you see such a big retracement and what's going on. But again, like for me, it comes down to the fundamentals, right? It comes down to the fundamentals of what is going on. And the fundamentals for me personally of why I have Bitcoin is governments are printing money, right? And they're not stopping, and they're doing it at historic rates. And they actually can't stop. They actually have no moves. So they don't really, right? I mean, their moves are to either print money or adjust interest rates, right? And they can't raise interest rates because most of the banks would, a lot of the banks in the US would either go under or have an extremely tough time even staying afloat if those interest rates went up. And they have to keep printing money, right? Because I think that clearly the U.S.'s budget is in a negative, right? The way it was running prior to COVID and even post now, but they have to keep printing money, and they have to now pay interest on that debt, on that money. And when the interest is more significant than the revenue you have coming in, you can't ever really get ahead, right? If you were to $100,000 in debt, let's say, and you owed $1,000 a month, and you can only pay $800, you'll never pay that debt down, right? Because that $1,000 is just you're gonna owe, $1,010, $1,030, $1,048. And your income is not rising in a way that can meet and pay off that debt. So that is an obvious reason for why, personally, I think I'm holding Bitcoin. And the other thing to understand, guys, is Bitcoin is not just obviously a U.S. asset, right? It's a global asset. So the printing of U.S. dollars is just one, although be a major factor, it is just one factor when you're evaluating, right, what is going on. In terms of how much inflation is actually happening, right, and what that means for Bitcoin, right? So globally, there's been over $25 trillion, I believe, since in the last year and a half, I think, globally that's been printed, right? So that $25 trillion has to go somewhere, right? When you look at Bitcoin's market cap, we're not even at $1 trillion right now. So if only the new money that got printed was able to find its way into Bitcoin, not the decades and decades of rampant money printing that's been going on were to find its way into Bitcoin, but just the new money, if just that new 25 trillion were to eventually find a home into Bitcoin, you're looking at a Bitcoin, near $1.4 million, right? Because the market cap now is under $1 trillion. You think 25x, I mean, obviously it would be much bigger than gold at that point. But what is interesting to find, right, is that money is not flowing into gold, right? Gold is not performing anywhere near what people were expecting to be happening for gold. In a time where governments are printing crazy and people are freaking out, right? Of course, in crypto, someone could say, well, is that money flowing to crypto? Look at the big pullback that we just had. But when it comes down to it, it's cyclical. There's manipulation that's going on, but there are people who are buying every single day. You've got a finite supply. You have an insane amount of Bitcoin that is leaving exchanges, and a lot of the biggest holders who are either in the space or who have recently come in the space, they have long time horizons, right? They're not selling that Bitcoin. They have no plans to sell because they would trigger a tax and have to go pay that tax. So their plan is to buy it, hold it, and borrow against it, right? And as time goes on, as the market caps grow, or as market cap grows for Bitcoin and really this space entirely, volatility is going to reduce, but volatility is your friend, right? If you're in the game of wealth and capital accumulation, you want volatility. You want that action, because if things aren't volatile, they're dead, they're boring. You don't really have the upside potential that you might have on things if you don't have volatility. So does this change things for me personally? No, right? I think the one lesson to learn here is to make sure, as things are running up crazy is to be more disciplined about taking some profits. And what that means, right? Some people will take their profits into Bitcoin, and other people will take those profits into cash. Doing one or both, not financial advice, is never a bad idea, because again, if the whole space drops to collectively, when you have some cash, you're able to buy the dip, right? If you don't have cash, you can't buy the dip. But obviously on the other side, right, taking profits into Bitcoin is a fantastic move as well, right? Because what better asset do you want to hold? I mean, obviously many people are taking profits into things like dollars because they think they're a genius and they're going to guess the top or the bottom or what's going on. And oftentimes they've just lost a tremendous amount more money by doing that. But that's the lesson to be learned here, is taking some profits on the way up so that you can buy whenever there's a correction, because corrections inevitably always come. I hope this video was valuable for you guys about what has happened, what is happening, and what's going to happen next. I've got a lot more content coming out on the channel. If you can, hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't, and comment below on other topics you guys want to see me cover on the channel. But thanks. Have a good one.